Hey guys, welcome back. Have you ever wondered what the classical guitar equivalent of this is? Well, it turns out it's this. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It would really help support the channel. So in modern jazz, rock, and pop music, it's pretty commonplace to see an improvised intro to a piece of music or a song. I think we've all been to a rock concert or something like that where they have a really long, drawn-out intro, and then they lead into their big hit song. Once upon a time, classical music used to have a similar practice. Just like I played Eruption, the Van Halen intro to You Really Got Me, their Kinks cover, classical musicians used to improvise in a similar manner before they would play another piece, like a sonata or something like that. And in many cases, they would actually insert these preludes or cadenzas in the middle of sonatas at key points. So they would actually improvise in the middle of the composition. So this video is going to be a hands-on practical course on how to improvise really simple preludes that can lead into your classical pieces. Mostly because it's fun to do, and I think it spices up the performance just a little bit, so that way it doesn't get stale playing the same thing over and over, and it's also great for the audience too, because they hear something that's not really expected. And as a performer, you get to put your own unique stamp on the composition. But if you'd like to see a more in-depth guide on historical performance practice and improvisation, let me know in the comments below and I might make a future video about that. So in the 19th century, specifically around Beethoven and Giuliani's time, the most true test of a performer's skill was how well they improvised, with Beethoven known to be one of the best improvisers of his day. The most common forms of improvisation at the time were generally known as preludes or cadenzas, sometimes used interchangeably. And these could be both long or short, and they could modulate to a variety of keys, assuming that you can get back to where you started. Now, in regards to the tradition of plucked instruments, this practice goes back way farther, all the way back to early lute music, where lutenists would pull out their instrument and use it as a way to warm up or just to make sure their instrument was in tune. Because when you're playing a 13-course instrument, that's a problem. And if you've ever looked at the original manuscript of a Weiss prelude, like the original tablature, you'll notice that it's kind of the same thing. It's an unmeasured prelude that kind of meanders around the key of D minor, which is a really great way to make sure that your instrument, who's tuned to D minor, is in perfect tune and that you can proceed to play more of the suite. Now, the most common type of prelude to write and execute is what's called a figuration prelude. And this basically means you're going through a series of chords using the same kind of finger pattern or figuration. Two of the most popular figuration preludes include the first piece in the Well-Tempered Clavier, and then also the prelude to the first cello suite, both by Bach. You'll notice that in each piece, the same motive gets repeated over and over again to tie it together. And on guitar, if you're going to prelude a piece this way, you basically take a sequence of chords, go through it with the same finger pattern, and then just make sure you're ending on the 5 chord so that you accurately prelude into your new piece. Now, the last thing I'll mention before I get to the actual lesson is that some people have a hang-up about improvising in a classical style or tacking on little improvisations in the beginning of classical pieces because they think that somehow it's not historically accurate, or that you need 17 degrees and specialize in early classical music improvisation to be able to do it, or that the early music police are going to come and take you away. And to that, I really say, who cares? I mean, the more correct academic term, historically informed, is called historically informed for a reason. Trying to replicate a performance that nobody in the modern era has ever heard is something of a futile pursuit. The best you can do is be historically informed by reading a lot of historical manuscripts, treatises, and then listening to other experts that specialize in this kind of thing, and then just get the best idea going forward about how to structure your own improv. Because at the end of the day, the point is to create music that inspires you and the audience, and that's really all that matters. And honestly, this lesson is more historically inspired than historically informed. I'm taking a few notes from various treatises and books and things like that by Diabelli and Czerny, but I'm kind of spinning it in a more modern direction so that you guys have some fun with it and just experiment. When I do my own solo performances and concerts and things like that, I like to prelude pieces with really unstylistic choices. Meaning sometimes I'll prelude Asturias with like a Post Malone song, or I'll do, right before a Bach prelude, I'll play a little bit of a Foo Fighters song, but in a classical figuration prelude style, just to keep it fresh for me and the audience. and it's just kind of a fun surprise. Now with that said, let's get to the lesson. Before we start, don't forget to download the tabs and sheet music in the description below. So the easiest way to improvise a prelude that you can use to lead into one of your pieces is to come up with a really simple chord progression and then a nice little finger pattern, and just make sure you end on the 5 chord before you start your piece. In this case, we'll be preluding a really popular etude by Carcassi. And what we're going to do is start with a really simple chord progression. We have A minor, D minor, A minor over E, or 1-6-4, and then going to a 5 chord, or E7, and then back to 1, like that. So we have like that. So you could do something very simple like this. And then go straight into your piece. Now, the step after that is just adding a very simple finger pattern. So you could play that and just arpeggiate the chords. So you could do and then go into your piece that way. And then you could add a different finger pattern. So in this case, sextuplets. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's just a very, very simple, short example. Now, if you wanted to extend this and you had a greater knowledge of harmony, obviously you could add chords in between. And this is where we come up with not only that 5 chord lick that's in the PDF, but also that kind of diabelli cadenza that I've included. The diabellis, I think, maybe like 4 to 6 measures, and it's similar progression, but it's the one I played in the intro. It's A minor, and then it's got a 5 chord, A minor over C, and then you have kind of a B half diminished, 1-6-4, 5 chord, and then back to 1. And you play it in sextuplets, so you have and then start. So something that's really cool is you can prolong that 5 chord. So either you can use the first example with the simple just 3 chords, and then maybe add that lick. So you might do something like to really heighten the tension. If you play it faster, you get a really heightened sense of tension right before you start your piece. And you can do the same thing with the diabelli. And if you wanted to get very creative with it, you could find other ways of fitting in figuration preludes. So another way you can spice these figuration preludes up is to change the figuration. And one of my favorites is the intro by Bach to the first cello suite. And you can kind of sort of do that on the diabelli version. So instead of doing, you might improvise something like, oh, I don't know, like a Now, another fun thing I like to do is maybe use a completely unrelated song that has a really popular, recognizable melody, just kind of as an Easter egg to lead into your piece. So you might do something like Stairway to Heaven, where you have the something like that, just to keep it fun. Alright, that's my time. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or topics you want me to cover in future videos like this one, please leave them down below. I'll see you guys in the next video.